Is this thing on?
Issues to start off season two, which is great. But welcome back into the studio. You
Man, I had to
are
dust
tuned
off the
in.
cobwebs and everything. It's been so long.
Yeah, I had trouble finding my microphone, getting all this technical support going in the background. It took me about an hour this morning to get the studio set back up, trying to figure out all the kinks and vibes again. But welcome back. Season two, officially, of the Go Howdy Southern Sports Talk podcast. Apparently, even talking is hard these days. But we are back. We apologize for the delay. Life kind of got in the way there for most of us. But
Just a little bit.
we are
Just a
going
little bit.
to try to, yeah, just a little bit. We're going to try to bring you all the recaps from all the other major sports that happened, all the sports in general that have happened since the last time that you've heard our beautiful voices on your airwaves. But I would be rude to not mention, I guess, the biggest thing. And unfortunately, Cody is not here because I had this great introduction for the both of you. But being as I am the only supporter who does not have a national championship to brag about this offseason, let's start there. Jerry, the Bayou Bengals reclaiming yet their second national title in 3 years when it comes to baseball. How are we
Yeah,
feeling?
man. Feeling great. I mean, I know that there's some talking heads out there across the nation that say winning a baseball national championship isn't as big or nearly as important as it is like winning a basketball or even a football, which I get. Football, there's a lot more, I guess you could say, like pageantry with it. Like there's a lot more to it for football national championship. But man, I don't know. Like I may have to give the counterpoint to the baseball one because unlike in football where you have just like the FBS and then you have the FCS, what do we have in baseball? Every university at the NCAA level. So it's a lot more competition. It's a lot less of a skill gap, but that's a conversation for another day. I I'm feeling fantastic. I mean, I don't have a problem with Paul Maneri as a baseball coach when he was at LSU, but I mean, you and I would agree when you go from Skip Bertman, who is arguably one of the best baseball coaches of all time, and then you go what like 15 years, 10 years before you win another national championship, and you only get one out of your like 15-year coaching tenure at a program like LSU. That's not the standard. The gold standard is what Jay Johnson is doing now, winning two out of the four seasons that he's there. He's been like a 50% like just Omaha trip. That I
Yeah.
mean, you being a baseball player, I mean that's just got to make you salivate thinking, yeah, this guy can get me to Omaha, the promised land of baseball. That must be nice.
Well, I mean, he's been there, what'd you say, 4 seasons, and he has two national championships and one number one pick in the draft with Paul Skeens.
Possibly
So
another
if
one
you're a
today
guy
with Kate
that's
Anderson.
yeah, I mean, so if you're a guy that's looking to play at the next level, it's hard to. I mean, I know if I was a recruit that was, obviously back when I was playing in college, there was no such thing as NIL. So I'm not even going to get into all that. But if I was a recruit in college or trying to get into college and I've got this guy knocking on my door saying, "Hey, I'd like for you to come play for us. Our track record is two natties in 4 years, and I've put at least one and potentially now two number one picks in the MLB draft." Yeah, why would you not? I was gonna say I wore my perfect attire this morning as I'm repping Franklin baseball here, but I would. I mean, and we could definitely we could argue about this for the rest of the podcast, but I would say that to me, in my opinion, as a baseball guy, winning a national championship in baseball would be harder than both football and basketball. But it's baseball is just one of those games that when you've got the star quarterback in football, like what you got going into it, right? And when you've got
Right.
the star running back, or you've got a guy like Zach Eady or something like that in basketball, like you have that star player. But baseball is one of those games that it's so futile, I guess, is the right word. That guys go hot and cold all the time. You could have a guy coming into
Right.
Omaha who's 15 of his last 30 hitting 500. He's just seeing the ball like a beach ball and he's spraying it all over the place. Or your star player, look at A&M this year. Take a guy like Jace Laviolette, who was supposed to be the bona fide number one pick in the draft this year and just didn't have his best
Unfortunate
year.
injury. Yeah.
So injuries and just everything that surrounded the A&M program this season. But I would argue that trying to win a baseball national championship is probably one of the hardest, maybe outside of hockey. But again, that's a conversation for another time. You got to
Right.
love what's going on down at LSU when it comes to baseball, obviously. So, hats off to you guys. You know, our other co-host that is not here this morning, unfortunately, with Cody. Uh, Florida gets back to their ways in basketball and takes home the national championship this year when it comes to March Madness. They climbed the mountain, they got to the top, and that was a very special team that the Florida Gators put out this season.
It really was. I don't think anyone like I know for me because I have little to no knowledge of basketball, but I don't think any of the talking heads had Florida on their radar to even make a deep run into the March Madness. So to see them be able to go up on top and win it all, especially through a tough SEC conference that we had this year, was very very impressive. So as much as it pains me to say it, congratulations to Florida. Y'all did something good down there in the swamp.
Yeah, but great point. SEC has always been the dominant football conference, and there's always been the SEC bias when it comes to football. But look at what basketball did this season. I mean, how many teams have the SEC qualified for postseason play? Like
Heck,
13, 11, 13, somewhere in there.
yeah,
So
I think the only teams that didn't make it was
coming out is
LSU and like Missouri, maybe.
it's probably pretty accurate. So you've got SEC coming around as I'm not going to say they're the powerhouse just yet, because there's a lot of good basketball conferences around the nation, but definitely coming around. And then I think it's bona fide in baseball. Just look at the top 10 all year long. There was anywhere from 5 to 6 teams in the top 10 all season long, starting with the great downfall that is Texas A&M baseball starting out, preseason number one, all this hype going into it, was able to retain the roster with Michael Early coming back. Um, you know, I I'll say this: I don't believe in firing coaches after one bad season, unless it was just a perennial like we won 2 games this year. Then maybe it's like, all right, it didn't work out. But you take that program, what happened with Schlossnagle and how he just took the whole staff essentially, except for Mike Early, who came back, got a good roster coming back. The players obviously love the coach. They all wanted him to be the guy. That was a big part of the selection process. Just I don't know that they played like a team all year long that we saw last year. I think there was a lot of guys that we're getting ready for the draft. Obviously, Jace is going to the draft. We've got a couple other guys that are going to graduate. I don't know. It didn't seem like the same team as last year, obviously, but that's the easy thing to say. So I think Early has earned another year. Now, next year, I believe you've got to be looking at a number 8, top 8 national seed. You got to be looking at trip to Omaha. And if you don't, then yeah, maybe it is time to move on. But landed some good guys in the portal so far. And you've got some good recruits coming in. As much as I hate to say it, Schloss went to Texas and did a phenomenal job. Um, Here's my hot take for our first episode back in season 2. And people will laugh when they hear the name, but I swear it's his real name. Okay. Coach Max Weiner, who is now the pitching coach for Texas, he will be he'll be a head coach somewhere next season. You look at what he did to A&M's pitching staff, went from middle of the pack SEC to make them the number one pitching staff in all the SEC last season, or season before last, excuse me, and then goes to Texas and turned them into the number one pitching staff in the SEC this season. So obviously, guy knows what he's doing, and I think he'll be the next big thing when it comes to baseball head coach. But yeah,
Man, I don't
what a
know what
season.
I was
And
just
then
listening to. Like I thought we were talking about basketball for a second. Then we go back on baseball. Battered Aggie
I know
syndrome,
I
man.
was I'm yeah, it's a real thing.
Oh,
So
it's
then let's move
definitely
on
real
to.
this year.
Oh, for sure. Well, it's always been real. It's just heightened this year because as we transition into the next sport that I follow pretty well. I'm not sure about you or Cody, but softball this season, Oklahoma did not pull off their 5P that they were looking for. However, the national championship did come back to the SEC in softball as well, with Texas claiming the throne over Texas Tech this season. Um, what a run by Texas. Again, SEC is just showing its dominance all across the board, but battered Aggie syndrome. Aggie softball makes it to number one in the nation and then loses out in the super regional to a Liberty team. So I guess there's just something about that number one ranking when it comes to A&M.
I mean, most likely there is. I know with softball, you're A&M softball wasn't in the same, or it wasn't alone in that boat of losing out of the first round. My LSU Tigers, they actually lost to my alma mater, Southeastern, which, man, talk about a roller coaster of emotions watching that one. Like, do you go for your blood in purple and gold, or do you go for where you're from in the green and gold? And to see a small university like Southeastern pull off and make some history, because when I was at school in 2012 to 2015, softball was nothing. Like we honestly thought that they were on the chopping block for the longest time. So to see them go to the regional final, unfortunately lose to a very good Nebraska team, it was still great to see that they were able to pull off the win in an in-state rival like LSU. So hats off to Southeastern. Unfortunate for LSU, but yeah, I mean, talk about insult to injuries with A&M's like just going in number one, all the hype in the world, and a really good roster at that matter too, but just not making it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I do recall that specifically. I remember looking at the super regionals, and I thought about you because I saw Southeastern and then playing LSU. I was like, oh yeah, I bet Jerry's torn on that one. Um, yeah, I mean A&M had it all going. Building a good thing over there. Aggie softball was really good there for a little while, fell off, but Trisha Ford coming in from Arizona State, her first season, really building it up. So lots of exciting things going on in Aggieland as far as the diamond sports go. So lots to look
They'll be
forward
back.
to, lots to be excited about.
They'll be
They'll be
back.
back. Yeah, we'll get there. You know, it's always next year when it comes to Aggieland. There's always next year. And then let's round up one more here. SEC women's basketball. I'm not even going to talk about A&M when it comes to this. They're just it's ever since Gary Blair took us to the top a couple years ago. Well, probably more than a couple years ago now, but it's misery in Aggieland when it comes to that. But the SEC did make it yet again to a national championship appearance. However, the South Carolina women just absolutely dominated by UConn and Paige Beckers. Make sure I want to say her name right, but she was the number one pick in the WNBA draft this season. So obviously having a talent like that helps. And when you got a coach like Coach Ariema, I think that's how you say his name, but dude is just dominating women's basketball.
Yeah, I mean, it was only a matter of time before the usual suspects of LSU, South Carolina, they get dethroned by another university. I mean, it's unfortunate that it's UConn because of the long-standing history that UConn does have in the uh, the world of women's basketball. But hope of the like in softball, they'll be back up there. It's like a revenge tour for South Carolina. Like they may lose the year before, but they're going to come back just firing on all cylinders and just scorch earth with it. I'm going to be scared for anyone that has to play against South Carolina next year.
Yeah, obviously, coach over there has got a good thing going. But yeah, with LSU this year, Kim Mulkey, didn't have the talent that I think she had on the roster last year when you got Angel Reese and that whole company that was going along. But she still had some good players. I mean, Haley Van Lith did really well this season. I don't
Well,
know
Van
that
Lith was over at
I was
TCU
talking.
now.
Oh, that's right. She had already, yeah,
Yeah,
she was there with Angel Reese and them. Yeah, she left. That's right. Yep. Well,
exactly.
there you go. That just shows the craziness of college sports. You can't keep up with where people are anymore because every year they're in a new uniform somewhere.
I mean, and that's what makes college sports that much more dominating than professional sports. You can even make an argument that the professional sports don't even match up to the high school level because every single year you're going to have a roster change and not just a few players, but a significant chunk of players. Mix that with the transfer portal now at the college level, and it's easily far more competitive, and you have to be more on your tippy toes with it and know how to coach and to evaluate players. And I mean, I know Cody is adamant saying that college sports has nothing on professional sports. I mean, just the roster itself, I think, puts college in a far better position.
Well, I'm going to play Cody for a second because I know he would not have let that comment slide the way it did. So, Jerry, with his first hot take of season two, that professional sports doesn't even compare to high school sports.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
That's it's a statement there, my friend. You
I mean,
might see if
how
we'll
many
see if some of the
NFL teams do you
spectators
see
agree with
have
you on that one.
significant like offensive changes? Like, look at A&M, perfect example. You have Kevin Sumlin with Johnny Manziel in the most spread dual threat quarterback kind of situation. And then they transition just a couple of years later to more of a pro style pocket passer kind of offense. You don't see NFL teams doing that.
Uh, yeah, there's truth to that statement. I'm not gonna let you slander Cliff Kingsbury's name like that. That was not someone's offense, but yes, I
True,
see the
true.
point that you're making. We went from Cliff Kingsbury, who was very um, his offense was one that because I've read a lot about it. I've talked to a lot of people about it. If he had a 2-by-2 set and they run their route concepts literally from the sideline, he would call flip, which meant the receivers are just going to flip sides of the field because their routes may have taken them to the opposite side of the field. So now it's just flip. So you guys are now we're going to line up opposite. Now we're going to run this play. So
Mm,
as much as it may have seemed extremely like complicated, which it was, I mean, to an extent, but when you read about his offense and when you try to understand it, it was pretty basic for the most part. It was just a matter of getting the right guys in the right spots and then calling the routes for them to run. But when you had a guy behind center like Johnny Manziel, there was nothing basic about that offense. It was just get the ball to Johnny, somebody try to get open, and if you can't, like watch out because here he goes. But yes, and
uh,
then we went to a very archaic, prehistoric. Every route's got 17 different possible reads off of it when it comes to Jimbo Fisher. So it
the
was a
high
huge
school
change. And you're right, you
notebook
don't
that's
see that
thick.
much. Oh,
Right.
that thing, like every time I see a notebook now, I just have like a little bit of trauma comes back. I'm like, oh God. Oh God, he's on the
Right.
sideline again. Somebody get him away from the play call sheet. But
Right.
you're right. I mean, there are no huge changes like that, and with the way that coaches now in college are also changing. You've got your perennial guys like Sark over at Texas, or Dan Lanning now at Oregon, or like back when Nick Saban was still doing his thing, which is such a crazy comment to make. Back when Nick
I
Saban,
know.
like, oh, what a what a thing. But yeah, there's no full scale changes like that. So you're right, and however, college is making that step towards pro, where it's NCAA is now trying to get a little hold on the NIL stuff with this salary cap and things like that. But prior, it was the wild wild west, and just Jim Bob down the road at the car dealership is going to give you $6 million because you're going to appear in our commercials, but it's really we just want you to play over here.
So it's interesting that you brought that up, and it's a good segment because not only is this season two for the podcast, but this year is either the year of revenue share or it's the start, or it's about to be the start of the revenue share, which you're not going to see these just car dealerships being like, oh, yeah, come here for 5 seconds, take a single photo, and you get $70 million. Like there has to
Hmm.
be a clearinghouse to approve this stuff. And if the clearinghouse doesn't approve it, then that NIL deal is done with. And then universities have a set amount of money that they have to split amongst all of the programs. So you may see, say, like Missouri, perfect example. They may put more money towards their basketball program compared to what LSU or A&M would, but LSU may be putting in more money towards baseball than what you would see at I don't know, Oklahoma. So it's going to be very interesting to see how things balance out and how universities prioritize some athletic programs over others. But I don't think we're going to have we're now getting to a modern era talking about like Wild Wild West. I don't think we're going to see another Bryce Underwood situation and at 11:59 p.m. The night before National Signing Day have someone come drop a bag of money. It's just not going to happen anymore. Hopefully not, because that was just ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. That was a very we followed it pretty well in our group chat, just because we like to keep up with everything that revolves around our schools and our sports that we follow. But that was a pretty wild situation. Almost takes me back to the kid from he went to Oregon but was going to go to Oklahoma. Peyton Bowen, I think was his name, strong safety. It was going to go to Oklahoma, and I think had actually signed his national letter of intent and faxed it in Oklahoma, but it never made it in for whatever reason. So then he decided, well, never mind, I'm going to go to Oregon instead, and then signed his letter of intent and sent it to Oregon. It
Wow.
was a crazy story. It was Dan Lanning's first season over there. So, but yeah, I mean, you just got go ahead. I'm sorry,
Yeah, so sorry. And
didn't mean to cut
apparently,
you
like the
off.
cobwebs are causing a bit of a delay. So trying to do some hand signals here and smoke signals. Revenue share started
Gotcha.
July 1st. So that's
July
where
1st. Okay.
yeah, so it's this is the year that we're gonna see a bit of a, I guess, a calming of like recruiting waters.
I mean, but I thought you brought up a good point, and I think you have to if you're these programs now that like you said with Missouri, you may have to say, well, as much as we'd like to be a football program, well, I mean, don't take anything away from Drinkwitz. So let's say baseball, right? Because they had a historically bad season in baseball this year. So you may say like, yeah, probably not going to put a whole lot of money into baseball this next season because we didn't do well and we're not recruiting well. So let me take that extra 5 million and ship it over to basketball because they had a good season, and give them a little more resources that hopefully we can keep building on that. Or you may see the exact opposite, which is somebody going, hey, we got to get baseball. We're in the SEC. We're in a premier baseball program. I'm going to take that extra 5 million from basketball and put it over to baseball. So hopefully those guys can land two or three more recruits and get them back to where they need to be. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to follow this season and going forward, just to see how a lot of programs adapt and see how maybe even some of these smaller programs may see a resurgence of some sports because they may take all their chips and put them in football and go, nope, we're going to be a football program, and that's what we're running with.
It'll be interesting to see programs like Syracuse, Duke, maybe even North Carolina, where they historically have a great basketball program, subpar base or football, and an okay baseball program. Are we going to see them make a resurgence back up to the powerhouse and basically be like back to back to back national championships in basketball compared to football? That's where it's going to be interesting, like you said. Where are they going to put the revenue sharing? and or prioritize it, and what is that going to translate to the recruiting world in those sports?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of strategy that's going to come into to being an athletic director. Not that there wasn't before, but just more now that you have all these extra resources available to you. So, well, let's switch gears here for just a second. I'm eyeing our script here. I know we kind of bounced around recapping the season there, but I would like to go back just a little bit and let's talk about baseball just a little bit longer here. You had brought up a good point there in the off season about what Jay Johnson's been able to accomplish at LSU, and what say like a Coach Vitello has been able to accomplish over at Tennessee. That I think now it's starting. We can kind of start the debate of who do we think now is the better coach? Is it a guy like Jay Johnson, 2 and 4 years, or is it a guy like Coach Vitello, who is, since he's arrived at Tennessee, has elevated them to the top and has been pretty consistent even in his only 2 or 3 seasons that he's been there. Um, I think the big question would be, who would you want to play for if you were a recruit? Who would you, I mean, take your bias out of it, right? Don't
Right.
don't bleed purple for just a second, but take your bias out of it. And which one of those two guys would you prefer to play for?
I mean, trying to take as much of the purple and gold out of me, I still think I would go with Jay Johnson. Now, obviously, with recruiting, or rather, I'm sorry, with the way baseball and any sport for that matter during the NIL era, there's going to have to be a new history book because, like, what Skip Bertman did in the 90s is something that won't ever be replicated. Like, he did it the like true to what college sports was supposed to be, wins six national titles or five national titles. That's ridiculous what he did. So there's because I think it was Brandon Walker with Barstool Sports that brought this up to T-Bob Abear, and they were saying like Jay Johnson won his first national title with Paul, like brought in Paul Skeens and just kind of did this whole thing himself, or not necessarily himself, but like he brought in Paul Skeens, which is a once in a generation kind of arm. And I'm just gonna actually kind of stop because I see that Kyle has accidentally excused himself. Kyle, still with me? This one too, you got me?
Anyway,
Okay. I'm gonna start my takeover. We'll just delete it in post.
yeah,
Um
I'll cut it out. Yeah, I'll figure it out.
okay. Um, yeah, I mean, to take all of the purple and gold out of me, I still think it would have to be Jay Johnson and LSU. Now, the history books are going to have to be rewritten, or we have to start a new history book because the way that Skip Bertman did it is completely different than how the modern coaches of today are going to be like. Because Brandon Walker with Barstool Sports brought this up to T Bob, who, as I'm sure everyone knows, is an avid LSU fan and even played for LSU. He was like, Tony V over in Tennessee.
Hi. I hate this.
Should we stop and let me host?
I, maybe I don't even know. I keep saying that my internet connection is unstable, but I've never had
Okay.
problems with my internet before, so I don't know what in
Right.
the world is the deal here. So,
Okay. I
um, I know that
I
we were on a
remember when
huge
my
delay because it was at one point it said we were only on for 16 minutes, and I looked down. I was like, we have not been only going for 16 minutes. Now it's this
Are you able
31.
to hear me a little bit more clearly now though? The
Yeah, a little bit.
response time seems a whole lot better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, so try your response again, and I
Okay.
will do my best to snip it and piece it all together.
Okay.
Okay, one more time from the top.
So to answer your question, I'm gonna take all